Hello and welcome to the Conscious Agility series. We definitely appreciate you making the time to join us. This is a three-part series, and before we dive in that three-part series, today we're going to look at some of the foundational pillars and really introduce the topic. Then in the second session, we will take a look at evolutionary transformation. In the third session, we will definitively take a look at key learnings and kind of what's next. And without more to say, I definitely want to welcome Brad Barton and Mark Ferraro to the conversation. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing well. Thank you.
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
It's so good to see you.
Likewise.
We live in interesting times, to say the least, do we not?
Yes, indeed.
No doubt.
And I'll say, especially given the work that we've done over the years and the book coming out so long ago and some of the topics, I think the world needs to hear both of your voices in particular. I'll put it that way.
You're far too kind, as always. But we're always here to share, of course.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. So maybe we could start off just kind of with we'll go through introductions and then we'll get into the topic itself. Mark, Brad, whoever would like to tell us a little bit about who you are so the audience can get to know you.
After you, Mark.
Very good. Thanks, Brad. Hello, folks. Thanks for the opportunity, Cy. I'm Mark Ferraro, actually titled as an Agile coach for the last probably more than 15 years. I know it's been 20 years since we worked together, but since we first worked together, certainly working quite a bit over the years. But really in that capacity as Agile coach, helping organizations, individuals, teams get to a better place by applying Agile, Lean, and other good practices. Really cultivating communities is always been one of my preferred techniques to really help, bring out the human side of the business and really be a catalyst for lasting change, really help folks get to a whole new place by really just sharing ideas and what they're passionate about.
Excellent.
All right. And my name is Brad Barton. I've known these two gentlemen for just about 2 decades. We met in central Pennsylvania, where I was involved in hiring Cy to come on board as a consultant to help us to really rethink our entire product development strategy and the manner and approach that we take or that we took in organizing around our products at the organization where we hired him. Most of my career has been spent in product management, spent some time in consulting as a result of the relationship that I built with Cy, and in between product management efforts, really spent some time coaching with Mark and Cy. But today I am the director of product management for a startup on the outskirts of Philadelphia, SCOIR, SCOIR, and we do quite a bit of work in the college search, discovery, and admission space, but continue to have an interest in nurturing strong teams and ensuring that we deliver value for all of our stakeholders.
Excellent. Excellent. Two of the most tremendous individuals I've ever worked with, if not the most tremendous individuals I've worked with, Mark and Brad. And as I mentioned, I'm Cy. I've been a coach, consultant, and practitioner for a number of years. I like to say far too long. Transformation's been the name of the game, exactly as the gentleman had mentioned, and really partnership with folks and focusing on everything from strategy to leadership, to culture, to execution, to technology, and all the in between. And I think as I've had the opportunity to work with you two gentlemen, amongst others, the focus for me has ultimately become really being a catalyst together with others, focusing on identity, its core, human nature. Most people don't like human nature. I'll put it that way. This is what I've learned. Dealing with reality. Most people ignore reality. And of course, we're going to get deeper, of course, into all these concepts, awareness and then impact in the world. So I have been very lucky to be a part of the journey with both of you gentlemen. So thank you.
Thank you.
So what's Conscious Agility all about?
I can you want to jump in, Brad? Or
No, go ahead, Mark.
so it's a pattern, Si. I mean, I think it's one of those things since, as Brad mentioned, when we first met back in central Pennsylvania and we were working to get that organization to a better place, it was a pattern. We clearly followed, a 3-phase approach in terms of really understanding and identifying, setting forth what we want to do, doing it, and then making sure we keep it whole in phase 3. And it's really, then we went on into the consulting work that we described, and the pattern just kept working, right? And it was a proven pattern. And I think at that point we had the conversation and said, hey, let's go ahead and capture this and put it down in our ebook. Really just a collection of conversations, focused conversations on different topics to get the folks to a new place.
Yeah, I think some key things that you touched on there, Mark. It was really a culmination of the work that we had done in the early days. Si's never giving himself enough credit. I think, one of the things that drew Mark and myself to Si was the fact that he came to the table when he worked with us as clients with a wealth of knowledge and pulling from a number of different sources and bodies of knowledge and bringing them together in new and more meaningful ways. So I think conscious agility became just an extension of that, and really as we worked together and really found sources that resonated well with all of us, conscious capitalism was one that hit me very strongly and spoke to me very deeply, and the business agility and certain to win, these are all concepts that just resonated so strongly with us, and it felt like we could bring those together and describe our approach in a way that really helped to better illustrate our mindset and our thinking around what it means to leverage people to drive meaningful change and actually to do so towards some ends, to really use those efforts to drive real value for everybody involved.
You two are very eloquent in your description. I'll tell you, my experience with you two, I think we were all on different paths in very different ways. Even though you two had been in the same organization, perhaps not worked as intimately, right? Until we all crossed paths.
Yeah.
So I really felt like we all had different sort of threads coming into it, and the magic happened and we intersected, and the dots began to connect in ways that hadn't connected historically for us individually. And then ultimately what emerged was truly a way to help evolve ecosystems. And the focus on the human element was so pivotal. I think it resonated with all of us. And then, of course, the pillars that Brad, you called out in terms of conscious capitalism, business agility. We were talking about business agility before people were even talking about business agility.
Yeah. You to John Boyd said, hey, this guy has this thing called the OODA loop. You should check it out. And sure enough, there was a diamonds in that. I loved it, Si. It was, you would take these different pieces and say, don't read the whole thing, just this chapter, or here's the nugget you need from this one, or the nugget from that one. And then just integrating it all was just, it's always been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I interrupted. Yeah.
No, it's a good spot to chime in, because I think you call attention to something really important there, and that is early days. Folks weren't talking about agile, and lean was just like on the tip of the tongue at that point, at least in the technology space where all of us had come from. So it was interesting times, very, very much so.
But yeah, that was all the way back more than 20 years ago. We're talking OODA and agility, blending it with the lean and productization. All this stuff was stuff that you introduced and we executed on 20 years ago. Good stuff.
But I think the key is the 3 vantage points that we brought together, quite honestly, right? Definitively, I think we tapped into your community experience, Mark, right? We tapped into Brad's product management wisdom, and I mean, just all the value focus and all the things began to really harmonized, for lack of any other words, and then conscious agility manifested, and things continued to grow. One of the reasons that I was very keen on really having the conversation together is nowadays people are talking about complexity and ecosystems. Well, we've been doing ecosystems and what have you 20 years plus ago, and
Yeah.
now people are talking about identity, where for us identity has always been in the picture.
Paramount, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And defining it. What is identity? Awareness and ownership, and really putting a good definition on it, making it actionable.
Yeah.
And appreciation for one another's identity,
Yes.
and really understanding the stakeholder perspective. And ecosystem is made up of lots of different perspectives, and without that appreciation and without really understanding how all of the different players contribute, then you're really leaving kind of value on the table.
Yeah, and that's the direct hook right there. I mean, that's when we were introduced to conscious capitalism. I mean, that was all about awareness of stakeholders, identity, appreciating the different values, the different values from different perspectives, and all that stuff. So John Mackey and what they put forward there was very much aligned and resonated immediately with us.
So definitively, and so one question that I always come back to between us in particular is a lot of people talk about it, right? A lot of people really talk it, and especially today, there's a lot of language around this stuff. There's a lot of conversations, a lot of talk, but then putting it into practice was where I think we got our scars, right? We got our bruises, and we got all our Starbucks in the evenings, if you will.
Due to transformation from the trenches. That was I remember that coming. Yes.
So what kind of stuff, do you guys really carry from all the trenches and all the healing and the Starbucks visits and all those, the journey, if you will?
I think the one that's always interesting to me is always going to a new client, and they always have that list, right? Oh, here's the people you want to work with, but here's these people that aren't going to perform, right? They're just kind of over here, and I just know, hey, wasn't more than a couple engaged. Like, I don't want to see the list. Don't show it to me. Let's go through, let's go through the journey and see what emerges. And inevitably, it's those people that are on the list that, giving a new opportunity to contribute, to add value, to be appreciated. It took them to a whole new level. And that's something that always resonates with me.
Yeah, I think the one thing that will always be deeply ingrained in me is a desire to really appreciate the stakeholder perspectives, and really a need to really to do the time, put the time and energy and effort into understanding those perspectives, and looking for the synergies, and looking for the disconnects, and putting the time and effort into reconciling those things, and the dividends that it pays.
Yep.
Yeah. I think too frequently there's differing perspectives, and nobody ever takes the time to actually have the hard conversation and say, let's sort this out. Let's make sure we're optimized for providing value again.
I think that's one of our differentiators, right? I mean, that's huge. If you look at like what's really hit the market hard, and you hear about things like SAFE, right? And they say, hey, if you just do it this way, you're going to get to a better place. Right. And inevitably, hey, there might be some good stuff there, and some things that can work, but really taking the time to meet the organization where they're at, to really understand what's working for them, what's not working, what are their goals, and what they're trying to achieve, and go from there, I think is something that.
So definitively, the starting place is key. We go into a situation without preconceived notions, and I think that was key, and especially the metaphor, right?
It's our blank canvas, right?
Yeah. Exactly. The metaphor was very powerful, and the other thing that comes to my mind, and I really, as we've come together, right? We've worked over the years as we've gone in different directions. What would you guys say is perhaps the one thing that you carry and you live every day?
It doesn't happen without people. I think it has to be human centric. I mean, if that's.
I would say that's a big part of it for me as well. But I think it's the the acceptance that you're not going to boil the ocean, the acknowledgement that, this is a continuous journey, that, small repeated loops, iterative and incremental. I mean, you hear it across now, all that's cliche these days, but that really, I think understanding that there is no finish line, and that, as the environment around you shifts and as your internal organization evolves, you've got to constantly reevaluate. You've got to constantly think about how can you make small refinements in order to re-optimize and continually. We talk about define, create, refine, and I think it really is a continuous practice of looking at how we're working and asking what could we do better.
And I think that's it. I mean, that's a perfect anchor, really. The second real anchor of conscious agility is that ability to reorient, right? And that's the business agility is, hey, we're headed this way, and being able to reorient. And nothing's made more obvious than what's been going on over the last year is the need of organizations to reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
In the implicit decision making, the intuition, that I think that's something that we tried to really call out when we talked about this. Is it's not like this procedural. It's just you've got to adapt. You got to let the chaos around you, as a wise man once said to me, and really set yourself up to allow the yourself to pick up on the signals and sense what it is that's occurring, and allow yourself to intuitively redirect your efforts and really continually learn from what's occurring around you.
And I think that's all we could ever hope for as catalysts and consultants of transformation, is really helping organizations get to a place where they can feel comfortable without explicit decision making, right? Really empowering folks that really know what the vision is, what the purpose, what they're going after as an organization, and know that the teams around them will do the right thing to follow that mission.
Yeah.
And that implicit decision making is really an essential piece of being able to pivot and change your orientation faster than the competition.
Well, of course, in the product management space these days, it's all everybody wants to talk about outcomes over outputs, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the sort of thing that we were after. Look, you give folks a good sense of what it is you're trying to accomplish, and really arm them to make good decisions and just get out of the way.
Yeah. It's always intriguing. It's always intriguing. There's a thought that I have, and I want to definitely kind of see what you guys have experienced relative to this. I feel like there's so much talk. People don't want to do the heavy lifting. They don't want to, because it requires a lot of blood and sweat, and and tears along the way. All of those things, and as I look at conscious capitalism, if you will, I think people think about it's just let's be virtuous. And a lot of that being virtuous is emptiness versus actually focusing on being aware of what the stakeholders are truly in need of, and bringing harmony across the board. And these are not easy things by any stretch. Or business agility. A lot of people think, well, business agility is about speed, if you will, when the reality is exactly as you said, Mark. It's about reorientation. Mm-hmm. And then anti-fragility. Anti-fragility, a lot of people I find them trying to bring certainty into the uncertainty, when the reality, right? When the reality of it is, no, how do you make decisions in uncertainty, right? And leverage stress.
Yeah.
So
how do you welcome it and want it? Because you know it's going to make you better.
Exactly. So, as you gentlemen have gone through the journey and have looked at that across the board, the question that I always come back to, are people really that uninterested in doing the heavy lifting and the hard work, or is there something else?
Oh, it's a tough one. I mean,
forgive me, Mark. I mean, somebody could look at some of the things that we've done and say, well, why would you put yourself through that?
I think we asked ourselves that a number of times, right?
Yeah, I know why. I mean, it's just the rush, the individual transformations. Why do you do it? I mean, because seeing an organization get to a place that they never thought they'd get to, and the individuals, those same people I was talking about earlier that were on that list, and knowing that they were on that list, and now being able to demonstrate, demonstrably be somewhere different. I remember one. One of the young ladies that was on that list was actually somebody we took to the Agile conference to tell the story. Right. And that's the stuff that never gets old, and it makes the blood, sweat, and tears worth it, the individual transformations and what the organization can get to. But I think a lot of people, quite honestly, SAFe and some of these other methodologies, I think they sell because people just want a quick answer.
Well, I think that's it, right? I mean, I think going back to what you were asking, Si, like you said, that they want to put the hard work in. I think a lot of times folks are looking for the silver bullet and the quick answer, and somebody to just tell them, give me the pattern. And I think what we tried to do was provide a pattern that didn't presuppose that we knew what the outcome would be. To acknowledge that every organization is its own organism. Every ecosystem has its own unique characteristics. And, when you walk into an organization, you should never assume that you have the answer. You've got to really establish context and really achieve a deep appreciation for all the moving parts before you can start to reimagine what it looks like to function more effectively. And it is hard work, and it's a lot of work, but the outcome at the end is more lasting and more meaningful. And if you can really achieve that, it's different than implementing a framework and expecting that, you're going to have to implement the next framework that somebody rolls out 6-7 years from now.
Yeah.
I think it is. I mean, that's, the pattern that we put out with conscious agility is just such fundamental foundational questions. Who am I? Who are we? Right. And just being able to sit back and really take that in before saying, okay, how about this for a path forward, and working with the folks there and say, hey, would you think this would work, or how about that?
Yeah. And I know we'll get into, in the next conversation, we'll get into the phases and the details. The question that I pose, if you will, for all of us is, do we have to live consciously in order to manifest change? So are we living conscious agility in one form or another in order to exercise it?
I think it's I think it's always there. And I know from just trying to be aware and just the stuff, there's nothing, in a sense, there's nothing new in conscious agility. It's just really appreciating the people around you, being appreciative of that, being appreciative of where you want to go together, having a conversation of where the future would be. I think there's a lot of the basics, the foundational things are there. And I think we probably all live it in some way. I don't know if I'm going after what you're after, Si, but I feel like we're always, it's always certainly in the background of my thinking.
Well, and I'm trying to remember. I feel like there was talk of, or somewhere in there is a talk of a mindset. If I'm recalling correctly, I've got to go back and refresh my own memory a little more. But I mean, absolutely, I think there's a degree of, I don't, to sound cliche, it's like a meta sort of thing. It absolutely, the pattern, I believe, is applicable on many levels, and something that generally influences how I do just about everything.
Yeah. So respectfully, we drank our own wine, or we ate our own dog food, one way or another. Look at it, right? Definitely.
That's it.
How about questions that come to your minds? I mean, question. I've been throwing out a lot of sort of questions, but things that come to your minds.
So what do you carry with you? I mean, I think that you get to ask us that. What sticks with you these days?
You know, what sticks with me is you gotta find the X%, the golden nuggets that are out there.
Mhm.
And I mean, when I first showed up and we met, you could speak very specifically about both of you. I mean, you could see magic. You know, those are the golden nuggets. And I feel like a lot of people go through life and they convince themselves that there isn't goodness out there. So they just kind of give up, right? Or assume everybody's the same, or they start telling themselves stories that become hand waving.
Mhm.
So the thing I carry with me is I think I'm always in awe, and I think there's magic out there as much as we struggle. And I was very lucky to stumble upon two individuals.
Well, again, I don't think you give yourself enough credit there, because I think that was something that we recognized in you when we brought you aboard to help us, and something that you know what I need to remind myself of from time to time, and that is too frequently folks that we encounter in doing business today, they're not interested in finding those that can contribute in meaningful ways. They're more interested in demonstrating how capable they are to contribute. And your approach to engaging with an organization was eye-opening to me, and really did help me to better understand and better appreciate that if you really do look across an organization and you find those who are able to contribute, and you look more at how each individual group of stakeholders is able to contribute, and if you truly look at bringing those pieces together in a way that amplifies the impact that all of you have, it's a completely different conversation. Yeah. You walk into some organizations and you see a bunch of individual champions looking to prove or win. You walk into an organization where folks are truly at harmony. I think we talk about equilibrium. I think it's a different experience.
Yeah. And this is anyone listening, and there will be a number of folks listening to this. This is not to say that everything is always fine and good and easy and it's about being nice. I mean, there's some rough, difficult conversations we've had with clients, and we've had amongst ourselves with each other, if you will.
Tears. When we say blood, sweat, and tears, I mean literally they're tears. And there's some loud conversations, and conversations that are louder than others. But you do it with good intent, and it always comes back. And those folks that were upset or were providing a whole lot of energy in a way that wasn't necessarily aligned with where the organization wanted to go, they always appreciate it. They come back and say, thank you for helping me see that. And that's something that, again, doesn't get old.
Yeah.
You can see them coming through an epiphany or getting to a new place, and then using that energy to bring a whole another collection of folks in the organization, that ecosystem, along with them. So
well said. So I've got another question. This might be an interesting way to end for our first session, but we met in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Did you ever think we'd end up in South Africa? Cape Town? Did you ever think we'd end up in Vegas?
Well, yeah, you know what? South Africa, for how many days? I think I joined you in South Africa for a total of 3 or 4 days. Who flies to South Africa for 3 or 4 days? Like only a madman. So.
Yes, and good times in Vegas, and all sorts of fun.
Still have blisters from that one.
Still
for sure.
Blisters, long walks down the strip.
So I hope Vegas will still be in the works in the future. It doesn't mean we should exclude it, right?
Sooner rather than later, I hope.
Yeah, seems like a good plan.
Excellent. So really, anything else, gentlemen, around kind of some of the foundations, and again, this is not to share all the content, but really just kind of any thoughts as we continue the series.
No, just looking forward to sharing more about what conscious agility is, and how we got there, and hopefully ways that other folks can benefit from some of the stuff that we discovered over the years.
Likewise.
Excellent. Excellent. So with all that, definitely want to thank the folks for joining us. We'll look forward to the next session, and by all means, we'll continue the conversation in our next time. So thank you both so much, and I look forward to it.
And thank you, Cy. Brad,
Thanks,
always
Cy.
a pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
likewise.
Thank you.